All right, welcome. Today we're jumping into something that trips a lot of people up, building a Kubernetes cluster, from scratch. We're going to use a tool called kubeadm to see how all these different pieces actually click together. So let's roll out the blueprints and start designing our very own shipping company.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to use one simple idea for this whole explainer, a shipping company. Seriously, this analogy is going to be our North Star. It'll turn all these abstract, techie components into something we can actually picture in our heads.
So here's the plan. First, we'll take a look at the big picture blueprint of our company. Then we're going to peek inside the dispatch office, meet the managers. After that, we'll go check out the delivery trucks. And once we know all the parts, we'll actually put the whole thing together. And finally, we'll fire it up for the first time and run a system check to make sure we're good to go. All right, first things first. Before we even think about building this thing, we have to understand the two main parts of the company. Basically, the part that thinks and the part that does all the work. And this really breaks it down perfectly. You've got the master node, that's our central dispatch office. It is literally the brains of the entire operation, making all the big decisions. And then you have the worker nodes. These are our fleet of delivery trucks. They're the muscle, the ones out there actually doing the heavy lifting and running our apps. Okay, so what's really happening inside that dispatch office? Let's, swing open the doors and meet the key managers who are actually running this whole show. The very first thing you'd run into is the front desk, the kube-apiserver. And I mean, everything goes through here. Every single command, every request, whether it's from inside or outside the cluster, it has to pass through this single point. It's the ultimate gatekeeper for the entire system. Right behind the front desk, you've got etcd. You can think of this as the company's super secure official database. It stores the entire state of the cluster, where every truck is, what package it's carrying, what the schedule is. If it's happening in the cluster, it's recorded here. This is the single source of truth, period. Next up, meet the kube-scheduler. This is our expert dispatch manager. Its whole job is to figure out what to do when a new delivery order comes in. So in Kubernetes, our little packages are called pods. When a new pod needs to run, the scheduler looks at all the available trucks, checks their capacity, where they are, and then it makes a smart decision about which truck is the absolute best fit for that specific delivery. And last but not least, in the office, we have the kube-controller-manager. I like to think of this as the supervisor who's always walking the floor with a clipboard. Its one and only job is to constantly check the plan that's stored in etcd and compare it to what's actually happening out in the real world. This is such a core concept in Kubernetes, right? You tell it the state you want, and the controller manager works nonstop to make that a reality. If the plan says we need 10 trucks on the road, it makes sure there are exactly 10 trucks on the road. No more, no less. Okay, so we've met the management team. Now let's head out of the office and check out the other half of the company, the delivery fleet itself. What exactly makes each and every one of these trucks run? So on every single worker node, every truck in our fleet, there's something called a kubelet. The kubelet is basically the driver. It's got its radio on, always listening to the dispatch office, that's our API server, just waiting for instructions. When an order comes in to run a pod, the kubelet is the one that says, yep, got it, loads up the package, and makes sure it's running just like it's supposed to. But what happens when packages on totally different trucks need to communicate? Well, that's where kube-proxy comes in. It's like a dedicated traffic director that lives on every single node. It's responsible for setting up all the network rules, kind of like the invisible roads and traffic lights that let a package on one truck talk to a package on any other truck. It just makes sure communication flows perfectly across the entire fleet. And finally, we have the container runtime, something like containerd. This is the actual engine inside the truck. Yeah, the kubelet might be the driver telling it what to do, but the container runtime is the powerful machinery that physically runs the containers, our packages. Without this engine, the truck isn't going anywhere. All right, that's enough theory. We get the blueprint, we've met all the managers and the drivers. Now it is time to grab our hard hats and actually build this shipping company from the ground up. Now, before we start building, we need the right materials. We're going to need at least one machine for our dispatch office. That's our master node, and it needs a little bit more power. And then we'll need at least two, maybe smaller machines for our delivery trucks, the worker nodes. And the most important part, they all have to be on the same network so they can actually talk to each other. And when I say talk to each other, I mean we have to open up specific communication channels or ports. For instance, port 6443 is like the main radio frequency for the API server. Port 1025.0 is how the master talks directly to the kubelet on each worker.
Just think of them as dedicated phone lines that have to be open for business to work.
So, how in the world do we install and connect all those components we just learned about? I mean, doing it by hand would be an absolute nightmare, super complex and easy to mess up. But thankfully, we have a secret weapon, kubeadm. This tool is like an automated assembly line. It takes all those individual parts and just wires them together perfectly to create a working cluster for us.
And honestly, kubeadm makes the whole process pretty straightforward. First, you install the basic tools on all of your machines. Easy enough. Second, you run just one command, kubeadm init, on your master node, and like magic, this builds the entire dispatch office for us. Third, you configure kubectl, which is basically our command line remote control for the whole cluster. Fourth, and this is super important, you install something called a network plugin. Think of this as laying down the roads and the GPS system for your fleet, so all the trucks can find each other. And finally, kubeadm will spit out a simple join command that you just copy and paste onto each worker to connect them to the master. That's it. 5 steps, and you're in business.
Okay, the assembly is done. The power is on. This is the moment of truth. Let's run our very first system check and see if our company is officially open for business.
And we do it all with this one simple command, kubectl get nodes. Think of this as our very first radio call into our brand new dispatch office. We're just asking for a quick status report on the entire fleet. This is our hello world.
Now, if all went well, in the output you're going to see the word ready next to each of your nodes. But hang on a second. Let's just pause and think. What does that one little word actually tell us? What has to be working perfectly under the hood for the system to say, yep, I'm ready? Well, ready means everything works. It confirms that the worker has successfully called in to the master's API server. It means the kubelet, the driver on that worker, is healthy and waiting for orders. And crucially, it means the network is up and that node is fully prepared to start accepting and running our applications. So back in our shipping company, this is the driver calling into dispatch and saying, hey, I'm in my truck, the engine's running, my radio works, and I'm ready for my first delivery assignment.
And that brings us to the end. You've done it. You've built the infrastructure. The dispatch office is fully operational, and your delivery fleet is standing by, all connected and ready to go. So really, the only question left is, what are you going to ship first?